Straight all day.
Now tuned into the show where you learn the discipline to show up day after day to do the work, the confidence to put yourself out there boldly and authentically, and the mental toughness to continue showing up, doing the work, putting yourself out there even when the success you've expected to achieve has yet to be achieved. And on top of all this, you get a huge dose of personal initiative. That is a go-getter energy that moves any one of us, including yourself, to go and make things happen instead of waiting for things to happen. And then we put all this together into a series of frameworks, approaches, insights, strategies, and techniques, all underneath the umbrella of one unifying philosophy that is called work on your game. My name is Dre Baldwin, also known as Dre All Day, and welcome to the show. And today's topic is discipline is not convenient. In case any of you thought it was supposed to be convenient, in case any of you was expecting it to be that way, if any of you sent it back to Amazon and asked for a refund because it was different than what you thought it was going to be, let me let you know, go reorder it. Because somebody gave you some bad information. It was not me, but I'm gonna give you the right information here today. But before we get into that, let me tell everybody that I have a daily motivation text message that I send out free of charge to everyone who's in my text community. This message is guaranteed to keep you focused, sharp, and on point. You would like to receive it, and you should. Text me at my number right now. Here's the number: 305-384-6894. Send a text to that number right now. Every day when I send out the daily motivation, you'll be getting it. Number two, if you have not yet claimed your free copy of my book called The Third Day, The Decision That Separates the Pros from the Amateurs, let me tell you why you want this book. This book is all about how you show up and give your best effort when you least feel like it, even when your energy is not there, even when things aren't working the way you want them to, even when you just don't want to be at work. How can you give your best effort anyway? Because that's what the pros do, and you're a pro. I'm going to tell you how to do that in a way that is repeatable and duplicatable, and it is not based on you getting hyped up or motivated. That's for 8th graders. You're not an 8th grader. I'm gonna tell you how to do it like an adult. Go claim your free copy of the book by going to thirddaybook.com. Again, thirddaybook.com. The book is free. All you're gonna do is cover the shipping. And the third thing, all you professionals who are serious about making more money in your business because you are performing at a high level and doing so consistently, I'm gonna tell you the 5 key shifts that you can make that are going to help take your business to its next level. Yes, the 5 key shifts that you're going to make in your business to help take you to the next level in your business. 5 keys to easily increase your income and do more business. It says it right here. If you're watching on video, you can see I'm showing you the screen off my phone. I'll give you this training for free. It's only 45 minutes of your time I'm going to ask for. It costs you no money. It's 45 minutes of your time. Go to workonyourgame.net. Again, that's workonyourgame.net. The training is completely free. If you are interested in being coached by me or joining one of my coaching programs, Work on Your Game University, the only way to get in is to get on the call with me first. I do not let just anybody get into my coaching programs because you got to work with me directly. So I got to get a feel for who you are, what you're about. Watch that training first. At the end of the training, a link's going to pop up that gives you a scheduler that allows you to schedule time on my calendar. We'll get on the call. We'll talk about what we need to talk about, and we will go from there. That is at workonyourgame.net. Everybody got that? Workonyourgame.net. All that said, get into today's topic, which is discipline is not convenient, which I already somewhat introduced. Now, we have discussed discipline in several episodes of this show, more than I probably even want to list here, but I will give you a few of them. Most recently, we talked about discipline in episode number 2366, where I told you that your discipline challenge is actually a structural challenge. When you have a challenge with discipline, it's not that you are not disciplined. It's not that you're not a hard worker or you're not motivated or anything like that. It's actually you just haven't structured your life or whatever you're working on in such a way to make the discipline easier to do, and that's why you haven't been disciplined. Listen to episode 2366 if you have not yet. And I also did a 3-part series on successful people disciplines. I gave you 9 specific disciplines that all successful people follow. Those are episodes number 22, 74, 75, and 76. Those are all listed down below in the show notes, but if you don't see them, go to workonyourgamepodcast.com. You will see a list of every episode ever in the history of the show all on that page. Episode number 2044, I talked about discipline versus willpower. And also one more, I'll give you episode 2030, choosing vegetables over candy, where I talked about long-term discipline. So since we discussed discipline several times here, and there are many more, I didn't even list them all, I just gave you a few of them just now. But today's episode is about helping you understand that being disciplined is not about things being easy. And being disciplined is not always going to be easy. And I think actually many of you may already inherently understand that. And you might think that in order to be disciplined, you just got to get tougher and rougher and mentally stronger and all of that. Maybe a little bit, but there's some other ways to do this. And that's what we're going to talk about here today. Now, I want you to keep in mind that in life, there are no perfect outcomes. There are only trade-offs. I talked about that in episode number 2174. There is no scenario in life that's going to be perfect for you. Everything you do in life, there is something that you have to give up in order to get it. We call it opportunity cost, You cannot avoid it. All right, there's a trade-off to every single thing that you do. So the question we're going to answer today is, which trade-offs are you willing to make in order to get the outcomes and the results of discipline? Got it? All right, now that you know what you're going to get, let's get into the points. Point number one. Today's topic, once again, is discipline is not convenient. Think about what I say in the intro to this show every single day. The discipline to show up every day and do the work. That's what I say. All right, everybody knows me for saying that, right? Let me ask a question. Who in this room, by show of hands, feels like showing up every single day to work? I mean, every single day. I'm not talking about you felt like it today. I'm talking about every single day. Who here feels like coming to work every single day? Excuse me. Let's just look over the last 12 months, the last 12 calendar months. Who here has felt like being at work every single day for the last 12 months? Nobody. All right, none of you has your hand up right now. None of you have. And I work with a lot of people in my university. I respond to text messages every day. I respond to DMs every day. I respond to app replies and tweets and emails every single day. Nobody who I've ever engaged with says, Dre, I feel like being at work every single day, always. And listen, I talk to people who do very fun jobs. I talk to people who are entrepreneurs. I talk to people who make well over 6 figures. I talk to people who make over 7 figures. I talk to people who play professional sports. None of them feels like being at work every day. And they work the kind of jobs that many people dream to have. Nobody feels like being at work every day. So with that being said, even if you love your work, you still have days you don't feel like being there. True or not? But look at the results that come when you do show up and do the work every day. Look at the reputation that you develop. Look at the work. Look at how the work you put in starts to work for you. Now, the people who I work with, people who I just referenced, they all have this experience as well. At least when they're working with me, they do. I can't speak if you're working with anybody else. If you're working with me, you get these results because we break everything down to a system and a strategy. All right, this ain't no motivational speaking program. We break things down to systems and strategies. So the trade-offs of the reputation you build, how your work starts to work for you, the results you get and the rewards you receive, are those trade-offs worth showing up every day, even when you don't feel like it? This is an open question. Okay, this is not a question I'm going to answer for you. This is an open question I'm putting to the audience. Is it worth it to get the reputation, the work working for you, the rewards and the results that come with it? Is it worth it to show up even when you don't feel like it, if you know that's on the other side of the mountain? It's just a question that I'm posing to you to stimulate your thinking. Only you can answer the question. I'm not going to answer it for you. I'm just posing it to you. While you sit on that question, let's move on to point number 2. Today's topic, once again, is discipline is not convenient. It's not supposed to be, and it's not going to be. Number 2, one big difference between successful people and unsuccessful people. There are many differences, but one of them is that successful people do things that are inconvenient more often and more consistently than unsuccessful people do. More often and more consistently than unsuccessful people do. Now, I want you to notice the word in there. I didn't say that unsuccessful people never do anything that requires discipline or things that are inconvenient for them. They do it every now and then. They just don't do it consistently, and they don't do it enough. I want you to understand, remember, episode 2174, there are no perfect scenarios, only trade-offs. In other words, no matter what you do in life, there's a trade-off that you have to deal with. And a trade-off usually is some form of inconvenience. Can we agree? The trade-off that I'm referring to is some form of inconvenience. I want everyone listening to me right now, think back on the last 24 hours of your life. Any of you who's, the only exception is those of you who are on vacation right now. If you're on vacation right now, maybe in your last 24 hours, you didn't have to deal with any trade-offs. But any of you who's living your normal day-to-day life over the last 24 hours, think about all the inconveniences you had to deal with. Your inconvenience might be a coworker who you don't like, or a boss that you got to deal with, or a headache customer that you had to appease in some way, or something in your job that you hate having to do, but you know you got to do it and there's no way to take it off of your hands, or some other thing that you had to deal with. Some of your kids were getting on your nerves, your significant other was getting on your nerves and bothering you, something happened in the neighborhood that you got to deal with, something that went on that is an inconvenience that happens consistently, and you had to deal with it. Anyone who's lived your normal day-to-day life over the last 24 hours, you've had to deal with at least one of those. Can we agree? So all people, whether you're successful or not, has to deal with those kind of things. All right, whether you're successful or not. The difference between successful and unsuccessful is successful people know that those things are inconvenient and they go towards them and deal with them anyway, whereas unsuccessful people do everything they can to avoid those things, but it's not like they go away just because you avoided them. All right, you avoid your bills doesn't mean the bill stops needing to be paid. All right. You avoid going to the gym doesn't mean that your body stops needing to work out. All right. When you avoid things, doesn't mean they go away. It just means you didn't do it. And there's a big difference between the two. As the saying goes, folks, success is hard on the front end and easy on the back end. And while failure is easy on the front end and hard on the back end. And one of the successful people disciplines that I talked about in that 3-part series that I referred you to, which was episodes number, what episode was that? Successful People Disciplines was episode number 22, 74, 75, and 76. One of the things I mentioned in that 3-part series is that successful people do the hard stuff first. In other words, they do the hard stuff on the front end so that they can do the easy stuff on the back end. Whereas failures do things the opposite way. See, it's not that they avoid hard things, it's just the hard things eventually catch up to failures. Whereas successful people, they go to the hard things. They don't wait for something to catch up to them, they get on top of it. Which means, by deductive reasoning, everybody, that either way there's going to be a hard period in your life. All right, there's going to be a hard period that you got to deal with. Sometimes the hard period is every day. Sometimes the hard period once a week. But you're going to have to deal with something that's challenging and inconvenient for you. It's just a matter of whether you want to deal with it now when you can control it, or you want it to happen later when it is forced upon you and you cannot control it. So do you want to be on top of it, or do you want it to be on top of you? That's the question that you're answering here. And I'm going to let you sit on that too while we move on to point number 3. Today's topic, once again, is discipline is inconvenient. Number 3. Good thing about discipline being inconvenient is that once you get into a flow and a rhythm of being disciplined, even though it is not convenient, it gets easier to do the inconvenient thing. Why? Because you got into a flow. See, when you get into a flow of doing things that are challenging, it's easier to do them. You make it feels easier to you, and you make it look easier, even though the work itself on a basic and a vacuum level is still the exact same amount of hard. It just gets easier for you. This is what the 3rd day is all about. That book that I told you to go get your free copy of by going to thirdDayBook.com. If you don't like doing burpees, for example, but every day you go to the gym and your trainer has you do burpees, the first few times you do it, you feel like you're going to throw up. Like you hate doing burpees, you're about to cancel your personal trainings and fire your trainer because you hate doing burpees. You're about to call out sick next time you're supposed to go to the gym because you hate doing burpees. But if you keep doing it and you keep showing up on that 3rd day when you don't feel like doing it, what happens is the act of doing a burpee does not change it whatsoever, but it gets easier for you because you built the muscle, the internal muscle and the physical muscle of doing that burpee to where doing a burpee doesn't bother you as much as it used to. That's the 3rd day. That's what happens when you build discipline. Because you got into a flow and a rhythm, excuse me, of doing something that was hard for you, inconvenient for you, but you built up the muscle to where it's not as hard anymore. It doesn't bother you as much as it used to. This is how your habits and the law of inertia start to take over your actions. And it's easier to keep doing something based on the law of inertia when you are already doing it than it is to stop doing it and do something different. That's how the law of inertia works. Now, many of you may not be familiar with the law of inertia, but everybody here is familiar with the phrases stagnation and momentum. Yes? Okay, everybody's heard of those phrases. Stagnation and momentum are opposite ends of the same spectrum called the law of inertia. The law of inertia states that an object in motion shall remain in motion until or otherwise acted upon by an outside force. In other words, whatever you are already doing, if you're already moving and doing something, it's easier to just keep doing it than it is to stop. That is a scientific law. And the other side of the law says an object that is not in motion will remain not in motion until or otherwise acted upon by an outside force. In other words, if you're sitting around doing nothing and you ain't got nothing going on, it's easier to stay doing nothing than it is to start doing something. All right, so any of you know somebody who ain't got nothing going on, it's easier for them to keep doing that nothing than it is for them to start doing something. I didn't say it's impossible. I didn't say they shouldn't, but it's easier to keep doing what you're already doing than it is to do the opposite of what you're already doing. This is why any of you have heard the phrase, the rich get richer and the poor get poorer, or the smart get smarter and the dumb get dumber. I don't know if anybody ever says that, but I just made it up. Why is this? Because the law of inertia. I want you to understand the key word there, law of inertia, L-A-W. This is a scientific law. It is not a theory. It is not a hypothesis. It is not an opinion. It is not a perspective. It is a law, which means you cannot avoid the law. You can't avoid this law. So you either can get momentum working for you or you can have stagnation working against you. One or the other. Successful people are usually in momentum. They're usually moving forward. Why? Because the world is always moving. The earth is literally rotating. It is moving. So if you're not moving and the world is moving, that means you're losing by default. Is everybody following my logic here? So your habits, which are a form of the law of inertia, they're actually a result of the law of inertia, your habits, because a habit is an unconscious activity that you do without having to think about it, but you keep doing it over and over and over again. That's exactly what momentum is. When you get the momentum of going to the gym every single day, you build the habit of going to the gym, and you feel in momentum because your body feels good, you're working out, you're doing all your stuff. On the other side, conversely, you build the habit of doing nothing and eating ice cream and cookies and watching fucking Netflix and not taking care of your body. You get into the habit of doing that. And the law of inertia puts you in a state of stagnation. That's the common term, the everyday common man term is stagnation, but it's a form of the law of inertia, and that gets you further and further into bad physical shape. But they're the same thing. They're two sides of the same coin, or two opposite ends of the same spectrum. So which one do you want working for you? Because let me let you in on a secret. One of them is going to be working for you whether you want it to or not. So this is when your habits and the law of inertia take over, and it's easier to continue doing something that you're already doing than it is to stop doing it or do something different. This is the flow that you want to get into. And this is what the third day is all about. This is why I wrote the book called The Third Day. It's about you getting into that flow state and staying in that flow state at all times. Everybody following me here? Good. Let's recap today's class, which is discipline is not convenient. It doesn't need to be convenient. You don't need to look for it to be convenient. You just need to get it working in your favor. And I just told you how to do it, but I'll recap. So point number one, think about what I say in the intro to the show every day. The discipline to show up every day and do the work. So who do you know who feels like showing up every day to do the work? All right, even the highest paid people that you know, the people who work the kind of jobs that you would love to have, even they have days when they don't feel like being at work. But why do they show up anyway? Because they know about the trade-offs, the reputation you develop, the work starting to work for you, the results and the rewards you receive. Those trade-offs are worth it for people to show up and deal with the inconvenience of having to do work that sometimes we don't feel like doing. Point number two, one big difference between the successful and the unsuccessful is that successful people do things that are inconvenient more often and more consistently than others. As the saying goes, success is hard on the front end, easy on the back end, and failure is easy on the front end, hard on the back end. It's just a matter of which equation do you want to work with. Point number three, good thing about discipline not being convenient is that once you get into a flow and a rhythm of being disciplined, even though it's not convenient, it gets easier for you to do because the law of inertia takes over. And this is a scientific law. It is easier to stay in momentum than it is to get out of momentum. And it's easier to stay in stagnation than it is to get out of stagnation. So this is what the third day is about. So if you have not yet read the third day, go to thirddaybook.com, claim your free copy of the book so you can learn how to get this stuff working in your favor and not have it be a mystery to you anymore in your life. So two things for you to do. Number one, get my daily motivation text by texting me at my number 305-384-6894. And number two, go to workonyourgame.net, get access to my free 45-minute training, 5 keys to easily increase your income without beating yourself into the ground, even if you feel like you're already working as hard as you need to. Link is at workonyourgame.net. Work on your game. Dre all day.